Danielle, to the entire Beit Tehila family, including the Iowa branch, for their incredibly warm welcome. Special thanks to Eva for allowing me to coexist in her house and speak to her daddy. I kid you not. Okay. What's going on around us? Well, let me tell you, it starts with the words of prophecy. I shared this on Shabbat morning to a very small group of people, and I share it with you now. This is the prophecy from Amos, and I'll say it first in Hebrew and then in English. Hinei yamim ba'im, behold, days are coming. Ishlachti ra'av ba'aretz, when I will send a famine to the land. Lo rav lalechem, not a hunger for bread, velo tzama lamayim, nor thirst for water. Wait a second, what kind of famine is this? Ki im lishmoa et divrei Hashem. It's a hunger, a thirst, a famine to hear the words of Hashem, of God himself. That's the era we live in. It's an amazing era. It's an amazing era where, I have to say, facilitated, assisted by the very internet that Al Gore thankfully created for us. Amazing he actually claimed that credit, but that's okay. It's okay. There have been worse vice presidents. Y'all had one for 8 years. No, we're not here to talk about that. But the Parsha, the weekly Torah reading that we're studying in Israel, you're studying here in Brandon, and someone in Malaysia is studying at the exact same time. That's pretty amazing. Now, tonight, this is an incredibly rare opportunity for me to be able to have shared with the congregation and to actually come back just 2 days later and kind of fill in the blanks and address some of the questions that have been percolating since then. Now, I didn't want you to be scared when you saw me come up with 2 books. Because I got to tell you, in America, in the Beit Knesset, in the synagogue service, whenever the rabbi would get up, and in Israel we're spared this kind of speech or sermon, but in America, all the congregational rabbis do it, and they usually come with big volumes of the Talmud. They're about this big. So, and I found, without a doubt, there's a correlation. The bigger the books, the more boring the points. I've come with 2 very small ones. Not to worry. I actually, when coming here to Brandon, I actually had in my mind to do a different PowerPoint presentation. Scrapped that idea 2 days ago. And yesterday I was formulating in my head a series of thoughts that I wanted to share. And I went to bed last night at about 10:15. And I woke up at 2:30 to freshen my makeup and go back to bed. And I did the thing that we're always told we shouldn't do. Check your phone when you go to the bathroom. It's the middle of the night, the light is flashing. It's like something important happened in the last 4.5 hours that I need to find out about. And then lo and behold, I can't fall back to sleep. Hate when that happens. Well, I didn't bring a lot of reading material with me. So I opened up my Tanakh. Now, when you're really tired or jet-lagged, you always seem to wind up in Jeremiah, which is not a terribly uplifting experience usually. I was not jet-lagged. I will be next week. And I go like E.T. home. But I opened up to Hosea inadvertently. And honestly, I'm a lot more familiar with the first few chapters of Hosea. Where it lays out the whole thing, you're going to marry a woman, oh, she's a bad woman. And it sets up the entire situation of Ephraim, of the northern kingdom of Israel. Instead, I wound up in chapter 12. I'll just read you a little of it. Oh, by the way, two very dear friends gave me some advice yesterday. Two guys who are exceptional Torah teachers in this movement, Mike Clayton and Barry Phillips. Dear friends, and they both very gently broke the idea to me that being half an Israeli and half a New Yorker, I tend to speak very fast. And with my PowerPoints in particular, I'm bouncing back and forth, throwing all kinds of stuff at you that I'm intimately familiar with, particularly coming from my side of the family, that y'all might not have. And I need to move at a more southern pace. And, kind of like Leonard Skinner supports Southern rock. To give people a chance to absorb ideas and concepts. And then, of course, Mike has to use the ultimate club against me by quoting Batya Wooten. And he said, Batya always said that sometimes PowerPoints takes away the power from your points. Oh, don't make me feel guilty. But chapter 12 is a real bummer. Ephraim surrounds me with deceit, the house of Israel with guile. But Judah stands firm with God and is faithful to the Holy One. Ephraim tends the wind and pursues the gale. I'm not one of those people who's blessed with direct dialogue with our Father in heaven, Avinu Shebashamayim. But I actually looked up and I said, seriously, that's what you want me to share? And then it was almost like I heard, nah. That's where y'all have been. To my ears, he speaks with a southern accent. It is so cool. We're having a good time tonight. We want to make sure that the footage doesn't need to be edited very heavily. I have to be a good boy. Oh, by the way, I was supposed to be speaking with a handheld mic today because my plan was, at the very end, for dramatic effect, I was going to drop the mic. And I have to tell you, Pastor Russell, the smile never left his face. He's like, no, our mics are very expensive. No. And all of a sudden, the minute I walk in, boom, I got the headset. Is there a correlation here? I'm not sure. So, what I feel led to start with are actually two prophetic quotes, one from Yirmiyahu, from Jeremiah, and it's chapter 3. Chapter 3? Could be chapter 3. We don't learn Tanakh chapter and verse. So the hardest thing is when people go, well, what do you think about Daniel 9? And I don't know. Let me read it. I don't know what you're talking about. And this is a real problem because the Tanakh that I tend to use is published by Koren Publishers. That's Koren, K-O-R-E-N. The funniest thing is traveling through American airports, even with the TSA pre-check. Makes me a legend in my own mind. Sometimes because of the thickness, it's Hebrew English, and it's this thick. It hits the scanner. They can't scan it, and I don't have 3.6 ounces of liquid, so what are they going to hold me up about? The Tanakh. So they pull it out, and usually they've got it upside down. Hebrew upside down really looks pretty cool, I have to say. And they're like, what is this? And then they see it says the Koren Tanakh. At Houston's Hobby Airport, Koren equals Quran. Just, and all of a sudden they wrap it up nice, and they put, no, you may go now, Mr. Bin Laden, it's fine. You don't have 3.6 ounces of liquid. Yeah, we don't have to worry about you. Okay, so where are we? Jeremiah. I did say 3:1, but it's not 3:1. No. I stuck my little bookmark here. I got to tell you, I'm incorrigible. Thank you. I got to tell you, that's why he's the pastor and I'm not. Okay. In those days, the house of Judah shall go with the house of Israel. My beloved brothers and sisters, without a doubt, we are living in that time right now. Now, admittedly, we're at the beginning of that journey. It's not like we've crossed the finish line. You know, Americans are very goal-oriented, and they want to win. It's not quite like that. And the only way that this is going to be done, this also popped into my little brain, is from Yeshayahu, Isaiah 11:13. Could they make the print any smaller? I mean, this is like really unfair. Then Ephraim's envy shall cease, and Judah's harassment shall end. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not harass Ephraim. I got to tell you, we act as if we don't know what to do. And it's right there. It tells us. Stop envying. Stop stealing the crayons from our siblings. That's right. Briella, share your crayons, please. Now, she's wonderful. And actually, that's the only way I've been able to get a hug from Eva. I've convinced Briella to give me a hug, and then because Briella doesn't, okay, hug. I'm seeing a new path of relationships with Judah and Ephraim every day. Now, so how do we do this? First of all, we need a little bit of heart to open our heart and to open our minds to brothers and sisters that are different. It's a classic case of Joseph. We're looking and saying, you're my brother? You're what we've been waiting for? Seriously. And the thing is, it takes that open heart. Now, from here, I'd like to kind of jump around to some of the questions that I got yesterday because we need more information. We're filled with disinformation, what y'all like to call fake news. A few years ago, that term didn't even exist. And now everyone's using fake news, fake news. Yeah, what happened last night in Syria was not fake news. Y'all heard about that? Oh, okay. Mysteriously, there was a massive explosion in Syria at an Iranian military base. 200 missiles exploded, creating the equivalent of an earthquake of 2.6 on the Richter scale. Boom. Who did it? Well, I got to tell you something. By the way, when Israel talks a lot, they do very little. We do very little. When Israel doesn't say a word, boom. Now, this getting to know each other, I would love to tell you that among the two books that I'm writing now, and I have to blame this guy in the back, David Altman, for that. The books that I'm going to be writing are going to be published by Key of David Publishing. That was the publishing house that Batya and Angus Wooten set up. Batya, in her tremendous insight, dumped it all in David's lap, David Altman, and said, run with it, kid. And David's doing that. But I think I actually should soon begin working on a multi-volume set, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th books, kind of like everything you always wanted to know but were afraid to ask and didn't know to whom to ask it. The first thing I want to start with is when people come to me and ask, do Jews really know about the tribes of Israel? Bless their hearts. So I realized something. I need to share a little bit of information. Now remember, all the information about the tribes of Israel is in the Tanakh, it's in the Hebrew Bible. I do have to say that it was not Christianity that began studying the Bible. Not at all. So, there is a difference though, the way we study prophecy. One of the biggest fears over all the years is when you ascribe certain current events to prophecy and then gear your entire life around it happening that way. We've had some really bad experiences. So also remember that for 2,000 years, most of 2,000 years, the Jewish community around the world was under the heel of Christian denomination or Muslim denomination. We weren't in a position to really state our opinions of things. Now, the central prayer that observant Jews say 3 times a day is the Amidah, so the standing, the Shmona Esrei, the 18 blessings. Do you know every single morning before we start saying that, there are a few lines that we say. It's called the Tzur Yisrael, and there's a great melody to it. Actually, maybe you can add it to the repertoire here. But I'll read it in English. Rock of Israel, arise to the help of Israel. Here's the great second line. Deliver, as you promised, Judah and Israel. Our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Blessed are you, Lord, who redeemed Israel. Judah and Israel, every single morning. There's also the prayer for the restoration of all the exiles of Israel. Every single day. Yes, we knew about you. And throughout history, emissaries from the Jewish community around the world went looking for all of y'all. Couldn't find you. The divine irony is many of you, particularly here in America, were hiding in plain sight in church pews throughout the country. Now, you can't really blame us for not knowing to look for you there. You didn't know you were there. You didn't know who you were. Okay? So no harm, no foul. Stop trying to make us feel guilty. So we know who you are. But the problem that many in the Jewish community who know who you are have is the same problem that I encounter all the time with people who identify as Ephraim. It's the classic, when you become me, you'll be fine. And it's equally as obnoxious from both sides of the table. The biggest believers in prophecy in Israel today are the Jews who have built communities throughout Yehuda v'Shomron, Judea and Samaria. These Dati Leumi Jews, the national religious, are the true Bible-believing core of the people of Israel in Medinat Israel, the state of Israel. But our view is always their view, which they exemplify, is the combination of emunah, of faith, belief, and action. Now, it's difficult at times from people coming from a background in Christianity to think of it that way. People say to me all the time, Hanoch, we're not wired that way. We're all about faith and grace. All we had to do is have right belief. And I acknowledge that. But I say, but remember, you're observing the Torah. The Torah is an action-oriented guide to life. Even in King James, thou shalt not. So don't take the cop out of, well, I'm going to just sit back there and watch it all play out. It doesn't work that way. It's a question of us believing, caring, and doing. Now, among some of the questions that came up yesterday, Pastor Russell asked a question. He asked several questions, actually. Each one was better than the other one. And the last one was probably the best. Unfortunately, the most difficult to answer. Because he said, how do we form relationships with our brothers and sisters of Judah? I wish I had an easy answer. But we've got to divide it in Israel and outside of Israel. In Israel, it's much easier. Because particularly when you go to Judea and Samaria, and instead of coming and saying, I'm all about this, it's just, and listen, and let me tell you something. When you go to Israel, you think you're going to tell everybody your testimony and who you are. You know what? Go with ears, because you were invited to his house. To his house. And you need to see with your ears and hear with your heart. That's a big difference for most of us. So in Israel, as I said, when you connect to the land will connect to you. And people will see who you are and will be impressed with you by your walk. You know, it's by your actions that people learn. It's not by statements. And some of our statements are just plain wrong. Again, I got to pick on Batya Wooten, who said, you know what? For years we were going to conferences and standing up and yelling, we are Israel. And she said, you know, it finally dawned on me how that must sound to the ears of our Jewish brothers and sisters. It's the unheard implication, we are Israel, and you ain't. Now, of course, saying we are part of Israel isn't as catchy. It's like, you know, just do it. It wouldn't be like, just maybe think about doing it. You know what I mean? So it's a question of thinking before we speak. So in Israel, and now each and every one of you, even those who haven't been to Israel yet, and again, remember, those are the only two acceptable answers. Yes, I've been to Israel. No, I haven't been to Israel yet. I got to tell you, normally that is not the part of my presentation that gets heckled. I got to tell you, that's really a bit surprising. In America, though, it's a lot more difficult. Because the vast majority of Jewish Americans are not affiliated with being Jewish in any way, shape, or form. It's a hard statistic to understand, but for most, and again, I don't use the term American Jews, because Jews in this country, Americans, are so concerned that everyone know that they're Americans first, that everyone else is, you know, Italian Americans, Irish Americans, Asian Americans, American Jews. Think about it. No other group uses that terminology. So they're at least 4 generations removed from a religious great-grandfather. 70% of American Jews have never visited Israel a single time. They're not members of synagogues. They don't support Jewish organizations. Their children have never received a Jewish education. They've never studied the Tanakh, nor do they own one. So it creates this kind of bizarre situation. You run over to this Jewish friend from school or from the area, and you say, listen, the prophet Zechariah told me that at the end of days, I'm going to come and hold on to your seat. And they look at you like, what's a seat? No, but it's more of like, Zachary who told you to ask me what? And it's difficult. It's difficult. I mentioned to several people yesterday that as a tour guide, one of the most difficult groups of people for me to guide are secular Jewish Americans, because we have no frame of reference. They don't know what I'm referring to. And all the time, by the way, I get the question from them, what made you go to Israel? In the same way, secular Israelis will say, why did you leave New York? It's like, New York, New York. I have a tune for just about everything. I know Ryan is sitting there right now and he's saying, my job's not in jeopardy with the way he sings. And you're right. You're absolutely right. And the way I thought, to explain to someone who isn't religiously observant that there's a mitzvah, a positive commandment to live in the land of Israel. So what do you say? So my little elevator pitch is very simple. I want it to be part of the destiny of the people of Israel rather than just reading about it in a book. And 10 out of 9 Jewish Americans that I explain that to look at me and go, and you could hear them say, what did he just say? They're no understanding whatsoever. They are Americans who by accident of birth were born of a Jewish mother. Their being Jewish is as significant as your eye color. Oh, it's not significant at all, is it? I'll give you an example. My mother of blessed memory had brown eyes. My father of blessed memory had blue eyes. My brother has blue eyes. I have brown eyes. It's like that, genetics in Bio 101 that we took. Big deal. Doesn't mean a thing. That's the problem. So what do? For now, you've got to focus your energies on Israel and cooperating and collaborating with the local Jewish community when you can. An event during Hanukkah, for instance, a rally in support of Israel, to serve as advocates for Israel. And you may feel, you know what? I'm not educated enough. I'm not prepared enough. I don't have the talking points. My card's out there. Write to me. I'll point you towards resources. Speak to Pastor Nick. Where do we find out information about this kind of stuff? What news sources should we be reading about what's going on in Israel? You need to become educated, and you are the advocates for Israel. You are the ones. You are the ambassadors. You're the front line of defense, believe it or not. I know it's a lot of responsibility. And I know it's like a heavy weight on our shoulders, but it's a burden of love. Speaking about love, all you need is love. I got to tell you, let me quote you something from the Talmud. Oh no, he's going to talk about the Talmud. We're taught that a love without criticism is not a true love. There's a lot of wisdom in that. There really is. But it's not for me to come and go around and criticize my brothers and sisters. Okay? There's enough of that in here. There's enough of that in here. And the key towards tshuva or teshuvah is always thought of as repentance. But technically it's not. It's a turning or a returning. A turning or returning to the state of where you should have been, where we should be. Okay? Our natural state. But it comes from acknowledging our mistakes, owning up to it, and here's the kicker, changing behavior. Ooh, what? Yeah. What are you thinking, man? Well, it's not my idea. It's his. It's his. All right. This is the opening salvo. Now we're going to jump into some questions. And Carolyn, I think you had a question. How did I know that? You've got to go to Israel. You owe it to yourself. And you will come back in this congregation, which is already incredibly different than most congregations. I mean, come on, seriously. I mean, an Israel trip, okay, other congregations have Israel trips. Other congregations send people to Israel. But y'all are like, it's like a yearly thing. Yearly thing. And Hayovel, those extremists out there, I got to tell you, come to Israel. Be part of the occupation. God, what a disgusting term. How can a people occupy its own land? Seriously. Well, you know what? We're not putting up with that kind of stuff anymore. And I got to tell you, a lot of people have a lot of trouble with the fact that the Jewish side of the family in Israel is already like, yeah, you don't like it? You going to do something about it? Go ahead. Make my day. I got to tell you, some of you may know that when I'm not guiding groups around the country or here in America sharing with my brothers and sisters of Ephraim, I guide part-time in the Western Wall tunnels. It's an amazing tour. I've guided there in the last 5 years over 600 times. Whether my colleagues or not are listening to this, I got to tell you, there is no one that does a better, more exciting, more informative tour of the Western Wall tunnels in English than I do. Bar none. Now, what's amazing is I recently, in the last few months, got my first criticism from one of the tours. Now, the tours are usually in either Hebrew or English. Actually, that's not true. There's Hebrew and non-Hebrew. Non-Hebrew is delivered in English. You're saying, well, we all speak. Well, the world isn't all Americans. So I've got people coming from Brazil and Poland who may have watched, an episode of, NCIS, or years ago, Kojak, and they think they can follow me in English. Ain't going to happen. So I got an hour and 10 minutes of like, can you speak slower? Yes, I can. And we'll get through a third of the tour. But at the end of the tour, a woman came over to me, and she obviously was from Europe, although when I asked which country she was from, she declined to answer. Ooh. But clearly it was the EU. And she said to me, I have to tell you, I found, and this is in front of everybody. This is like the ultimate diss. Huh? I have to tell you, I found your remarks unhelpful. Unhelpful, by the way, is the EU code for the fact that you Jews continue to live and breathe in Israel, and it's pissing us off. Pastor Russell, can we use that term on well, it's out there. Sorry about that. Oops, there it is. Oops. I listen to a variety of music. And I have to tell you, okay, a little anecdote. After one of my first trips to America, I not only share from my side of the family, but I absorb your culture. I don't know how many people in Israel eat cornbread, but, I'm doing, okay, this is absolutely true. I spent time with Mike Clayton in North Carolina, and I found frozen okra in Israel. So, I'm eating okra. And then I get a delivery once a week of organic vegetables. And I saw they had collards. I'm a Southern boy. I got to eat some collards, right? I mean, I tried grits, and I got to tell you, that's like pre-chewed. No. Mrs. Young didn't raise that stupid a boy. So, collards. And also, there is a French kosher butcher in Jerusalem that does a veal bacon and a lamb bacon. I had called up Mike, and I'm like, this is amazing. He said, well, what you need to do is cook the collards in the lamb bacon. So I said, really? What do I know? Now I know why y'all have been eating collards all these years. It has nothing to do with the collards. It's the bacon. That was wonderful stuff. Oh, my goodness. So a few years ago, one of my early trips, I'm back in New York visiting my daughter. And I had a series of emotional experiences. So it just so happened that my daughter, Ayala, in Israel, called up and she was speaking to my daughter, Kira, in New York. By the way, the names are a little play on each other. Ayala means female deer, D-E-E-R. Kira, from Yakira, means dear as in beloved, D-E-A-R. Yeah, I thought I was clever back then. It doesn't resonate as well when they're not babies. Anyway, so I hear Kira talking, and now I'm listening to things on YouTube because I had just been exposed to different music, a group called Jesus Culture, okay? And they have a song, I Will Not Relent, or something like that, which is actually from the Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, Simeni Kachotam Al Libecha, place me as a seal upon your heart, and the verse finishes a few words later, Ki ahava ki azemavet, for love can conquer death. So I found that a very emotional thing. So I hear Kira, all of a sudden, I'm one of those 30 minutes or 30 seconds. Get back there. Y'all are out of control here. I don't like that. This guy, okay, now we got to speak. No. Don't worry, we'll get there. Yeah, I noticed Pastor Russell is hiding. He's like, oh, I didn't send them out there with that. I didn't know. Yeah, you can hide. You can run, but you can't hide. No. So I hear Kira saying, yeah, no, Abba's here. Yeah. What's he doing? He's listening to Christian rock and he's crying. Yeah, no, nothing's changed. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll speak to... Yeah, so I fit in as well as a purple cat, to be honest with you. Now, people often ask me, you must be horribly oppressed in Israel because of your views. No. I'm not even on anyone's radar screen. Criticism, it's like, I'm not, of course people must think I'm wacky, but it's like, so what? It doesn't matter. People aren't out picketing my apartment building. It's very weird. Do you know what? Let's go into questions because we're running out of time, evidently. David Altman has a question. Oh, man. Y'all are supposed to be supportive. Okay.
Well, since nobody else is asking anything, I'm going to be the plant in the audience. Tell me, you were talking about transformative stories of people going to Israel. Miss Fran comes to mind. Talk about a good story. Someone who had faith. I don't know if you'd like to share that. That sounds like a good story.
Here's a woman, I would say in her early 80s, late 70s. It's funny, age is relative. And I hear Pastor Nick talking about, 51st birthday coming up. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, let me remember what that was like. And I didn't want to say, I'm sorry, brother, but it gets worse. The good news and the bad news. But I have seen people change. This is a woman from Palatka, Florida. Those of you who haven't been to Palatka, I'm missing a lot. You're not missing a lot. But people come, and people who open their hearts leave transformed. The land itself, the dirt, the soil, is something people don't forget. Now, what I do encourage you, those of you who've been to Israel know we've got a lot of rocks. Big rocks, little rocks, you name it. Please take them back with you. Take as many rocks as you'd like. They're heavy. Take the little ones. A lot of little ones. Seriously, we must have some questions. Up.
Today we were talking about the Sabbath rest of the land. Do the farmers observe that in
Shemitah or Shemitah?
Shemitah.
Yes. Now, there is a little bit of a difference. It's actually long and complicated, but now what's funny was the very first Connect to Israel tour, I think it was on the first one, 2014. I'm trying to remember when the last Shemitah was. 14, 15, I don't even remember. God, I'm losing my mind. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. And this one's on the highway to hell. But, I had one of these people on the tour. What's that on the left? What are we passing on the right? What's that tree 3 miles away? And I was too intellectually honest to make it up. Well, that's an oak tree. That's a fig tree. That's a date. I'm really trying to answer this guy. So at one point he said, I see a field over here. Isn't it supposed to be, what? They're growing stuff. It's not supposed to happen this year. And I look out and I see it looks like it's plowed, but all I can see is dirt and rocks. Rocks and rocks and rocks. So I said, well, here they're growing rocks. He said, yeah. And I said, rocks are not covered in Shemitah during the sabbatical year. You can grow them. You can till them. You can carry them. You can even plant them. Yeah. I showed him. Oh, there's a hand. Yes, please.
Right.
Up. Up. Okay. Will controls the horizontal and the vertical. So, all right, we're going to have dueling microphones.
Yes.
Please.
In, I think, 1973, there was some Ethiopian Jews, I think 130 of them that were airlifted to Israel.
That was later than 73. That was in the early 80s, yes.
Oh, it was
Operation
in the 80s.
Solomon, yes.
Right. So could you tell me what's going on with those Jews now? Because I've been hearing in the news some things that's going on with them. I don't know. It's probably fake news.
I'm almost certain that it is, but let me speak a bit about Ethiopian Jews. First of all, the return to Israel of the Ethiopian Jewish community is yet another firm sign of prophecy. 3 of the most ancient Jewish communities in the entire world, when I'm speaking ancient, I'm talking about more than 2,600 years old. Now again, remember in America, if something's from 1820, it's considered ancient, prehistoric. I'm talking about 2,600, 3,000 years ago. 3 communities, Ethiopia, Yemen, and Iraq. By the way, Iraq, just a quick note, like Iraq, where did Jews, y'all remember the Babylonian exile? The majority stayed. They opened up falafel shops and, no, they didn't open up falafel shops, but no, they stayed. Ethiopian Jewry came to Israel, and now the problem is Christian missionaries dug deep into the community over the years. And there are relatives of Ethiopian Jews in Israel who are still in Ethiopia, and the problem is they converted to Christianity over the last century. What do we do with them? And we're wrestling with that. The klita, the absorption of Ethiopian immigrants, has been especially difficult, let's say compared to the Russian Jews. Why? Because they come from a third world country. They come from many who were airlifted to Israel. This is the first time they ever saw an airplane. And it's very difficult. And you see, though, the young Ethiopians in the army, in society, the Miss Israel a few years ago, Ethiopian Jewish woman. It's tough for the older folks. And I can tell you, now being an older folk, even though my last name is Young, it's difficult learning a language. And culturally, the elders in the Ethiopian community, the women work, and the guys typically haven't been able to get employment. And it's very, very difficult. But it's a tremendous, what's fascinating though, is, you may be wondering, is there racism in Israel? There probably is. We're not any different than anyone else in the world. There are good Jews and there are bad Jews. Big shock, huh? No. But you know what? They're brothers and sisters. And they exemplify what Ephraim's going to look like when they come back. All different appearances. And appearances are just that. Skin deep. Doesn't mean a thing. I think we have a question over here. Yes?
I just want to make a comment. You were saying about, faith, emunah, but not doing something, And I just wanted to say that first thing that popped into my brain was James chapter 2 says, faith without works is dead. And that's what we live by.
And the thing that's fascinating is he was never called James in his lifetime. He was called Yaakov. And it should have been the book of Jacob. But there was a king. And it wasn't King Jacob. And he was pretty influential when it came to translating Scripture. I came in all settled down, speaking slowly, not bouncing back and forth, and y'all are like, no, come on. You go, welcome to the jungle. That's, by the way, I've been looking for an anthem to play when I walk into congregations. First, I thought the Darth Vader theme, dun, 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 dun. That's like really ominous. But I feel like, welcome to the jungle. We've got... Yes, please.
This is a two-part question.
Oh, no.
You were talking on Shabbat about the people in Sri Lanka that are into the Torah. And I just was questioning, because you were saying they were Buddhists, they
had been, yes.
Islam, they weren't Christians. So do you believe that they're part of Ephraim as well then?
Of course.
Okay, so...
Why else would they, in their country, choose a lifestyle which, like is so different than anyone else?
So saying that, then you believe then that because they're worshiping in Buddha different gods and Hindu different gods.
They're not currently Buddhists. In other words, that had been their upbringing.
Right. So
Yes.
So what are they now then?
They're Ephraimites. They're living a lifestyle just like you are. Just like you are.
So
same prayers, the same type of prayers, the same type of songs, the same type of foods. I mean, it was great being there because either they, like for instance, when they wanted to serve me fish, it wasn't a problem of like, is that the catfish going on? It's the same things.
Okay.
Yes.
So part two.
Yes.
As Ephraim, we believe that it's, holding the testimony of Yeshua
Yes.
and obeying his commandments.
Right.
And that would be the remnant of Ephraim. What do you believe would be the remnant then of the Jews?
Ooh, I'm sorry. We're out of time. No. In terms of belief system would be what we believe. I've never, ever, ever thought of that. But there is a shakeout going on worldwide, like it or not. And you're going to have to make a conscious decision. And by the way, y'all have made that conscious decision. By affiliating with and being part of the Beit Tehila family, you've already said, hey, I'm in. Now, by the way, no one's strapped to their seats. And there are doors. It's always that freedom of choice. Now, by the way, you bring up a very interesting point. And this came up yesterday. Thank you for bringing this up. One of the first things that I realized when I was called to reach out to my brothers and sisters is that y'all believe in Yeshua. And it's clear, that to everyone here, it's Yeshua that brought you to your Torah observance. It's Yeshua that's reconnected you to your Jewish brothers and sisters, to the land of Israel, etc., etc., etc. Now, please understand, from the Jewish mindset, we don't have an equivalent thing. We weren't divorced from the Torah. We weren't punished and forced to walk through the pens of history for 2,700 years. But the fact that we don't understand your experience, or the fact that you don't understand our experience, is actually irrelevant. I don't need to understand. I just need to observe and respect and work with. Okay? It's as simple as that. I don't need to rationalize why you do this or why we don't do that. It doesn't matter. And it will all be settled. We will be one people. We're promised to be one people, but truly only in His hand. So we don't have to play that game of chicken. You know, remember the movie Footloose? The two tractors coming, dun, 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 dun. We don't have to play chicken with it. It's not a question of, are you going to blink first or are we going to blink first? We're not supposed to be blinking. We're supposed to be looking at each other, by the way, with wide open eyes, with a wide open heart. Amen. So it's obvious what you believe. And it's obvious what we believe. And it's part of the divine irony that He put us in this situation. I mean, it must be sitting there. You know, my grandmother used to use an expression in Yiddish. A Mensch tracht und Gott lacht. A man is trying and planning and God's busy laughing. We think we go, oh yes, well we're going to do this and we're going to bring him to her and she's the bit. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Boy, I'm getting animated. Ooh. Do I have another 30 minutes? Can I borrow some of Pastor Russell's time from next Shabbat? Is he here to say no? No. Okay, I got it.
So basically...
You again.
Yeah, it's me again. Here I go. Anyway, in reference to the Sri Lankans and other nationalities over there, I was in Kuwait for 7 years, worked with Sri Lankans. I worked with Indians. I worked with Egyptians. I worked with a lot of different nationalities. And yes, I agree with what you said, that there are a lot of them in the Muslim and other religions, but I also found that was a lot of Catholic religion in there.
Yes,
And
not Western Protestants, correct.
And they also found their Hebrew roots there in Kuwait, which shocked me. But it's been going on for years, and it's growing.
Without a doubt.
So,
you know, without a doubt. And you know what's interesting is you do find, although it's unusual, you do find people who had been Catholics before coming into this walk. Usually, not always, but usually there are a couple of steps along the way. You know, Catholic, you know, Methodist, Baptist, Charismatic, Pentecostal. That's a fun ride. Anyway.
So I got one.
You gave yourself the mic, Will?
I did. I have that privilege.
That's a little presumptuous. No, I'm kidding. Yes, sir.
So you speak of the uniqueness of Beit Tehila and so forth. Worldwide, are you seeing anything like us?
Yes.
Out there? Yeah.
And what's amazing, at the Congress of B'nai Yosef, there have been 3 of those in Israel. I met people. First of all, that's where I met the Sri Lankan community. They were there. Papuans from not just New Guinea, but the part of Indonesia that remains Muslim. Indonesia, by the way, is the world's largest, most populous Muslim country. So you've got an Ephraimite community there. You've got First Nations people, Native Americans, Native Canadians. You've got people from South America, people throughout Africa, throughout Asia, people all over the world. India and Pakistan, by the way. I constantly get invited to come teach Ephraimites in Pakistan. That's one invitation I'm not taking. Thank you very much. That, or, when I've been invited to go to, there's an a community of former Americans, American expats living in Aqaba, Jordan, because they're they're a bus ride away from Israel. They've also invited me to come and share in their community. Not going to happen. My side of the border, please. Our side of the border. Up. We have a hand up here. Yes, please.
I was not privileged to be here Saturday to hear you, and this is an honor to be able to speak with you.
Well, thank you.
Question about the media in Israel.
Yes.
I know that there are some that are not necessarily good or bad.
That's absolutely correct.
I just want to know what you think would be a good
news source. Wonderful. Great question. Thank you. Ynet News. That's Yediot Achronot or jpost.com, the Jerusalem Post. Neither are ideal, but they generally have the truth. And then after that question, I want to share with you what y'all could do for me. Oh, what? That's not supposed to be about, yes. Please.
So what kind of progress are you seeing in the government or in the synagogues and all about what to do with these Ephraimite Christians?
Okay.
With the Aliyah, is that coming up?
Okay. The very vast majority of people remain totally unaware of who you are. And when you think about it, how would they know? How would they know? There haven't been enough people going to Israel, believe it or not. And by the way, that's a relationship over time. It's not I went for 2 weeks. They must know who I am. Okay. Understand also when you mention synagogues, we have no centralized rabbinic authority. We don't have a thing. There is a chief rabbinate of Israel who are the chief rabbis for those people who want them to be the chief rabbis of them. So there's no centralized anything. The government, I got to tell you, facing war with Iran and all of its allies is a lot more pressing on our agenda than people who've come to the understanding that they're related to the people of Israel. That's not a diss. I mean, you guys are my life. You guys are the reason I get up every single day. But there are other things going on around us. So the issue of aliyah, of immigration to Israel. Now understand something. Like every sane country, we have immigration criteria. Except in the American Southwest. Little caveat. Okay? Israel, remember, was reconstituted 70 plus years ago to be a Jewish state. Okay? Even though there's a very delicious phrase in our Declaration of Independence that says that Israel was formed as a homeland for the Jewish people and the ingathering of the exiles. Ooh, you didn't know that? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Now, the guys writing the Declaration of Independence weren't thinking, well, there's a group called Ephraim, and they're going to wake up in another 4 decades. No, but it's there. But right now, the only people who can get automatic citizenship to Israel are people who have what's called the Chok HaShvut, the law of return, at least one Jewish grandparent. By the way, that's in reaction to the way the Nazis, may their names be erased, defined Jews to be killed. If you had at least one Jewish grandparent, off with your head. So, now, having one Jewish grandparent can enable you, by the way, you have to prove all this. Seriously. One Jewish grandparent can get you to be a citizen of Israel. It does not, however, enable you to be labeled Jewish. Different criteria. Born of a Jewish mother or an accepted conversion. The issue of conversions is let's talk about conversions for a second. Stay who you are. Amen. However tempting it may be to want to live in the land of Israel, the key is not for you to give up who you are, as not for us to give up who we are. We're not there yet. We will be. How do I know that? Because it's promised. That's it. I got to tell you, the first time I was watching videos of preachers, because we don't have this thing going on in the synagogue. So I grabbed my Tanakh, my Koran Tanakh, hardbound, this thick, and I went like this. Oh man, I got tendinitis. I didn't know it needs to be soft cover. Boy, I'm learning quick. So what you can do for me? Am I running out of time? 10 minutes. Oh, 10 minutes is a lifetime. We could resolve everything. So let me quickly deal with that, and then we're going to get to your question. Hang on there. Thank you. First of all, I'll be honest with you. Please pray for my health. These trips are grinding. I've gotten 2 middle ear infections. And there's like a special place in hell for middle ear infection as the plane descends. When your head, quick little funny story. I had this ear, and I took off my glasses, and I'm kind of rubbing my head like this, going like back and forth, sitting. Guy next to me asked me, "Are you having a seizure?" So I said, "No, he said, "Oh, are you autistic?" I thought you all were supposed to be politically correct. Can you just ask someone that? So you're wondering, what did I do? A back fist to the side of the head. I took him out. No. So your prayers. I have to tell you, the fact that you're here, the group that I shared with on Shabbat, the group that's watching during live stream and will be watching in the future as we post this stuff up, that means everything to me. But I also need your help. Each and every person here in the Beit Tehila family knows someone else in this walk, somewhere else in the country, whether they're your Facebook friends, which is like, the world's most intimate relationship. 4,000 of my closest Facebook friends. Help me get introduced to other communities where we can share this message of love, collaboration, cooperation, mutual respect for the reconciliation, restoration of all of Israel. Friend me on Facebook. What's amazing is, I say that every group I go to. Y'all have inundated me with friend requests. It's amazing. And what's interesting is you see the people who are friends with all of y'all who don't live in this area. Obviously, they were the live stream audience. Hi, live stream people. Amazing, wonderful stuff, and I appreciate it. Go to my website, kolyehuda.com. By the way, you all know people going to Israel. I am a lovely, charming tour guide. They will not regret the experience with me. I can promise you that. That's how I earn my living. I've got a blog, which is a little dormant, but soon to be reactivated in another week on kolyehuda.com, KOLYEHUDA.com. It's got a blog. It's got a list every time of my upcoming speaking dates. It's got information about tours in Israel. Yes, you all should be coming on the Beit Tehila tour. For those of you who know people from other parts of the country that aren't able to come on the Beit Tehila tour, I want to scoop them up for something else. And also, I'll be honest with you, it is one of those magical donate buttons. Because with planning this trip at the end of June, by tomorrow, Tuesday, I've got to book a ticket. And for those of you who heard me say this, I have gone to El Al and Southwest, and I've explained to them what I do for my brothers and sisters, and they've been incredibly impressed. And then they ask me, so what credit card will you be using for that reservation, sir? Is the chutzpah, what nerve? But it is what it is. If you support what I do, partner with me. Help me make it real. Other thing, y'all have to buy Israeli products. Another website you've got to go to is sabrastyle.com. SABRASTYLE.com. It's a feast for the eyes. Yes, you hear Within Beit Tehila itself, you have olive oil and honey, but Israeli jewelry, Israeli artwork. Let's support those people who do the most and give the most to Israel. Go to sabrasal.com. UnitedToRestore.com. With the number 2. Restore.com. Articles that I've written, Ken Rank has written, other people have written about the restoration of Judah and Ephraim. If you're on Facebook, come to United to Restore. This commercial has been a paid political announcement. Your question, please.
Yeah, there is an organization that many of us already support for the small businesses in Israel as well.
Wonderful.
In passing, you mentioned Hayavel.
Yes.
So what is the view or the relationship that Judah has with Hayavel in what they're doing in Samaria and Judea?
Okay. First of all, I cannot presume to speak on behalf of all the Jewish people, to be honest with you. Most of Israel is probably totally unaware of what's going on with Hayovel. However, the community of Har Bracha, under the leadership of Harav Malamed, and by the way, he takes a lot of slings and arrows, because there are people, because we're naturally concerned with missionizing. There has never in history been an attempt by people who are not Jewish to love us without simultaneously stealing the souls of our children until now. Hayovel does an amazing job. And everyone who's experienced, and I got to tell you, all of the Connect to Israel tours that Mike Clayton and I bring, we always go to Har Bracha. We have an amazing lunch, wine tasting, Tura Winery and Rechalim. I mean, Psagot, there are amazing wineries. Amazing. They're making a difference. Hayovel is making a difference by putting feet on the ground, pruning shears in people's hands, and tons of the most amazing grapes and wine. And by the way, who here has tasted Israeli wine? Wonderful. By the way, you didn't drink wine. You tasted the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Nothing less. Ooh, I got chills just now. That's exactly what it is. Another side. And listen, for 2,000 years, there were no vineyards in the land of Israel. Because remember, the Muslims don't drink alcohol. And in 30 plus years, Israeli wines, gold medal award winners, because they do blind taste testing. Because the Europeans would never vote for a wine from Israel. Anyway, I was telling you the story before about from that woman that criticized me, from that European country. You're being unhelpful. And I said, well, what is it that I said that wasn't absolutely factually correct? Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, girl. I'll smack you upside your head. And she said, the fact that you referred to Jerusalem as the undivided eternal capital of the people of Israel. Really? So I said to her, and I was shaking, and the smile didn't leave my face, but the people that were with me told me that there was a vein throbbing in my neck. And I said to her, you in Europe may have trouble dealing with the fact that Jews still live, but we've returned to our land, and there's not a thing you can do about it. So she stormed off. Yeah, glad she moved out of range. Give it a roundhouse kick upside her head. Yeah. I think we have time for, another song? Mama told me when I was, no, I'm sorry. By the way, I have that Leonard Skinner Support Southern Rock shirt. Freaks people out. Kind of like. I just wanted to say. Yes, please. Wait.
You can go to Publix and buy Sabra.
Sabra Hummus. Sabra Hummus is owned by PepsiCo. It's an American company. But it's okay. Chickpeas are cool. It's not an Israeli product. I'm sorry. Oh no, so sorry. You ever watch Jeopardy? People there, they won 3 times what they earn in a year. And they bet it all on Final Jeopardy. And they have no clue of the answer. And Alex Trebek looks at them and all he can say is, Oh no, so sorry. Life is so unforgiving. Pastor Nick, when you do your talk show, I want to be on it. David, you get the last question. The last say. No, I get the last say, man.
You do, yeah.
Yes.
So my question is, and she related to it, it's like the sea Sabra in the stores. Do you have any quick tips on identifying what is actually helpful, what is actually supporting people who support Israel, what is coming from, as you pointed out on the tour,
okay.
You don't want your money going where bullets are going to be coming back at our people.
Okay, very important. When you go to Israel, if you have anything at all to do with me, you will not be shopping in the Arab shuk, in the Arab market. Okay? You are going to Israel in part to bless your Jewish brothers and sisters. I state that unequivocally. I don't hate anybody, but there is something that really bothers me when I see people paying their dollars that comes back to us in bullets. Fired at us. Not cool. Now, you do have tremendous opportunities to buy Israeli products right here. Nati Rome from Lev HaOlam, that amazing box. Okay? And all the women here who wanted to shake Nati's hand and hug him, you have to hug me. Sorry. Poor substitute, but this is the best you get. You've got sabrastyle.com. You've got products right here in Beit Tehila. There is no reason on a monthly basis that all of us shouldn't be buying something from Israel. And when you come to Israel, I'll point out the best spots for people to buy things. By the way, I saw a meme on Facebook about tour guides that said, "We know places to bury you that no one will ever find you. Be nice to us." I got to tell you, it's much easier to get a tip than to threaten someone's life. Guys, listen, toda rabah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming.